Hello, everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar on values and priorities. It's personal and business. I'm Bob Hogan, the webinar coordinator and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County. And I'm going to be your host today, and our presenter is Sharon Lewis. More on Sharon in just a minute, but first of all, this webinar is being done in collaboration with the Monroe Chamber of Commerce and the Monroe Library. In that regard, I'd like to invite Beth Stoller from the Monroe Chamber to also give some brief introductory remarks. Beth?
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Good morning or good afternoon. On behalf of the Monroe Chamber of Commerce, the Edith Wheeler Memorial Library, and SCORE, I'd like to welcome you to today's Lunch and Learn. For over 4 years, we three organizations have come together to bring you great business-driven topics to help you grow and learn as business professionals. If there's a topic that you haven't heard about but you're interested in, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know. I will put my email address. I'm Beth Stoller. I schedule the Lunch and Learns, and the email address is info@monroectchamber.com. I will put it in the chat. I know you're in for a great webinar today. Sharon Lewis will be talking about values and priorities. And this topic extends to us as business professionals. Beyond just what we do, it's about us as business people and the person that's behind those. So I'm looking forward to hear what Sharon has to say. Before I close, I want to remind you to hold the next 2 dates for our Lunch and Learns open. We will have one on Tuesday, May 11th. Chris Salem is going to be speaking about becoming a trusted advisor in your own business. And a change of date, Wednesday, June 25th, is now the date from June 23rd for Meryl Lochner's Tell Me a Story, focusing on the narrative of you and your business. So with that, I want to turn this back over to you and welcome everybody to our presentation today. Thank you.
Great, thanks Beth. Now some brief information on SCORE. SCORE is a nonprofit national partner of the SBA. And locally here at SCORE Fairfield County, we have over 130 volunteers with a wide range of industry, process, and subject matter expertise. And we offer 3 primary value-added services to small business owners. First of all, we offer free one-on-one counseling, which you can do by video, telephone, email, and you can access that by using the yellow bit.ly link that you see on the screen, or you can go to our website and click on the Request a Mentor link. Secondly, we offer a wide range of educational workshops and webinars like the one today, about 150 throughout the year. And lastly, we have extensive resources on our website, including access to subject matter experts. Our next live webinar will be tomorrow, Tuesday, April 6th at noon, and the topic is Exploring Franchise Ownership with Michael Rosen presenting. Again, you can find specifics on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. And if you're on our website, you will also find a large number of archived webinars that you can access on demand. Just some logistics about today's event. We have set aside time for Q&A at the end of the presentation, but if you have a question, you can use the chat window at any time during the presentation to type in a question, and Sharon will either take it as we go or take it at the end. And if you are not familiar with the chat feature, you can just hover on the bottom of your screen and click on chat. A little box will open, and that's how you type your question in. We will end sharply at 1 o'clock to respect your time. The session is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be available via our website within the next couple of days. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Sharon Lewis. Sharon has 25 years of project manager experience and became an AdviCoach owner and principal operator in Connecticut and Rhode Island. She works with business owners to define and achieve their vision for their business through awareness, education, and accountability. In 2020, she was recognized by the SBA as the Connecticut Home-Based Business of the Year and by the Old Saybrook Chamber with the annual Women of Excellence Award. Sharon, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. So what we're going to talk about today is how to identify your values and align them to make sure that work feels a little less like work. We're going to align our business and our personal values. So you can submit questions anytime during the chat, as Bob mentioned, and we'll hold them to the end and take them at that point. And I'm also going to use the chat to get some input from you along the way. So we're going to do a couple of exercises And if anybody registered late or doesn't have the materials that were sent out yesterday, I put the first entry in the chat box is a link to a Google Drive, and all the materials are in there. So you should be able to pull them up and keep up with us. So as mentioned, I'm Sharon Lewis. My business is AdviCoach. Oftentimes business owners don't have anyone to talk to about their business, and that's where I come in as a business coach. I provide a safe space to learn, discuss ideas, and create plans for a business. And what this does is it allows the business owner to get out of the day-to-day details and think about the big picture and work to develop their business. So I became a business owner because my previous career and my values weren't in alignment anymore. And because one of my values is to really leave things better than I found them. And that small business statistic that after 2 years, only about 7 out of 10 new businesses are still open, and by 5 years, that number drops in half again, really spoke to me as a place for a possible improvement. So that's my why for becoming a business coach. And it is the reason that I really enjoy this presentation. So let's get started. So to make sure that we're all on the same page, there's a definition of values up on the screen. So your values and priorities are really the things that you believe are important in the way you live and work. And I tend to use values and priorities interchangeably because sometimes when we're talking about them, we're talking about things that really sound like values, like family. And sometimes they're really sound more like a priority, as if I use my kid's name instead of just saying family in general. So your values are not necessarily the same as mine, probably not the same as the other people in this meeting, and they may not even be the same as your family members. And that doesn't make them good or bad. It just makes them yours. And life is easier if you can recognize and respect the values of others, whether they're the same or different from you. So, and being true to your own values can make you happier in your day-to-day activities, which is what we're going to talk about today. So think about your hobbies, right? So most likely they're aligned with your values because they're done for fun. They're done in your leisure time. And if they weren't in alignment with your values, you probably wouldn't be doing them. So to get started in the chat, drop in the chat one of your hobbies and the personal value that you feel is associated with it and why you do it. So while you're working on that, one of mine would be reading. And the value that I associate with it is time for myself. That's really how I make sure I carve out time that's not focused on anyone else. I tried meditating and I really liked reading much better. It's much easier for me. So we've got music, tennis because it clears Beth's head, sports and reading. You guys are fast. Genealogy because it lets me play. Gardening, which lets her connect to beauty. Coaching from Mayo, because one of her values is helping others grow in community. You guys have great examples. Golf, because it forces Rob to have fun. And music from Anne, because it connects her with family. So what we want to do is we want to try to figure out how do we get the things that we need to do and we have no choice about to feel more the way our hobbies make us feel. So there are several places that values show up in our lives. Today, we're specifically going to focus on the individual values, which are also your personal values, and the organizational values, which can also be called the business values. So for individual values, right, how you show up in your life, your specific needs, your principles you live by. In the chat, what do you think of some examples of individual values might be? Honesty, very good. Focus, education, that's a good one. So great. So a lot of it can be personal fulfillment. It's how you show up. For relationship values, right, how you relate to the other people in your life. Some examples might be openness, trust, generosity, caring. The organizational values, which we're also going to talk today, can you put in the chat some ideas of what you think those might be? Discipline, very good. Truth and transparency. Community, very good. That's one of my examples. Could be teamwork, could be strategic alliances, honesty and authenticity. And then the fourth type of value is the societal values, and that's how you and your organization relate to society. And some examples of that could be environmental awareness, it could be community again, it could be responsibility and sustainability. Victor threw in friendship for one of the values as well. So they're all great examples, and they're again, there's no right or wrong, and they're yours, and it can be pretty much anything you want to. So why do we care so much about values? The reason is because they translate to our behaviors and our actions and decisions. So just like an iceberg, if you consider that an iceberg, about 90% of the iceberg is below the water, your behaviors, actions, and decisions, the stuff we see on a day-to-day basis, that 10%, is all based on the significant stuff that sits below the waterline that we can't really see. It's not as tangible, right? So every individual and every organization is involved in making hundreds of decisions every day. You chose to show up today, and that is probably based on one of your values, right? Whether it's working on your business or working on yourself or something else that triggered you to make that decision. So all of our decisions are really a reflection of the values and beliefs that we have. And it's how we show up, it's how we satisfy our needs. So why are they important? For a couple reasons. I'm going to think back to that initial quote that I had up by Roy Disney. It's not hard to make decisions once you know what your values are. So in the decision-making process, I'm using my path in my picture to illustrate how values might impact decision-making. So if you imagine two people standing on our path, someone who values safety is going to approach the situation checking for safety versus danger. And they might take the path that they've taken before. Whereas another person standing on our path who values excitement is going to have a different perspective on the same situation and is going to be expecting to have a different kind of experience. They're probably going to take the path they haven't explored before or the one that was harder last time. So in your business, your values may guide you towards decisions on how to respond to a difficult customer or how to resolve a problem. In the chat, does anybody have any examples from their own business where you've made a decision based on your values while you're working on that? For me, in my business, I've relied on my values for some decisions on whether to stop or start specific coaching engagements, whether to engage with some community groups and not others. Those are some of the ways that it helps me show up in my decisions. Let's see. Anybody have any examples? If not, you'll get to some at the end. Victor says engaging with people that we can trust. Artie says, I rely on my environmental values to help me decide where to spend my dollars, personal and business. That is an excellent example. Okay. So another reason values can be important is if you're working in a group, team, you've got employees, it can help build cohesion between your group. So for values to be really shared, it has to be more than an advertising slogan. And a lot of companies will generate core values and then not really follow through on them. So for the values to be really supported, it has to be important to all the people that are holding them. So when you can get everyone on the same page when it comes to your values, it can help ensure consistency in words and actions. Think about how your employees interact with your customers, how you make a decision whether to do a new project or not. Those are all ways that can help you be consistent in your business. So I used cycling teams as an example of shared values. So for a cycling team, one member is the team leader, and everybody else is working to do everything they can to help that person win. In the major races, each team leader has 8 other riders. They're called domestiques, who don't have much chance of winning the race themselves. For the most part, their job is to ride in front of the team leader and cut the wind for him. All their cycling team strategy revolves around the notion that it's easier to pedal when there's someone in front of you, and that a group of riders can travel faster than one person by themselves. So that whole group of people, and there's more than just the 9 people riding, they all have the value of teamwork, right? Without that shared value for this type of racing, it would never work because we'd all be internally competing. Another reason values are important, when you follow somebody else's values, meaning that you don't share them, it can lead to depression, hopelessness. Those are often called the shoulds in life. You probably know somebody who really wanted to be an artist but felt that they should go into the family business, who wanted to start a business but felt that they should go to college first, who joined some organization or corporation, took a job where they just didn't feel like they fit in. Or it could be as simple as the person that really wants to grill a hamburger, but their partner is a vegetarian, right? So you're allowing someone else's values to influence your actions. Long term, it can really like stress you out, burn you out. And it's amazing that these values that most people probably don't give much thought to can impact how you live your life and really how you feel about it. So what do we do about values? As much as possible, we want to try to get alignment between our values and our activities. So how do we do that? So I've got 7 actions to get alignment on your values. So we're going to start with determining your personal values. The values are really priorities that tell you how best to spend your time today. So if we waste a day by investing our time in activities that don't produce the results we want, the loss is permanent, right? So we want to spend our time as best we can. And as normal human beings, we tend to be fairly inconsistent in how we invest our time and energy. We can be easily distracted. It's really easy to fall into the trap of living with different priorities every day. One day you exercise, the next week, of course, you slack off. One day you work really productively, and the next day you're just lazy and don't accomplish anything, right? So if we don't use our priorities to stick to a clear and consistent course, we naturally kind of drift all over the place. So with our limited time and our high level of distraction, consciously knowing and living by our values can help us get the results that we want. So the values can act as our compass to put us back on course, make sure we're moving in the right direction that takes us closer and closer to our version of the best life that we could possibly live. And they are your values, right? So ideally, others shouldn't judge us for them. And just as you shouldn't judge them for their values. One really good example of this is the mommy wars. What's better, working moms or stay-at-home moms? And this is really an example of people applying their values to others. So let's take a look at your values. So this is the first exercise, and we're going to do 2 relatively quick exercises that bookend your thought process around what do I want to do and what do I need to do. They're going to reflect what's a priority for you now and what do you want to be important for you in the future. So this first part is current highest values, and it says step 1 at the top of your handout. It's all about how you live your life, how you spend your time, because those are the things that are priorities and your current highest values at this point. And I keep emphasizing current because they change over time. So either consciously, because you want to move your values in that direction, like you wanted to exercise more and lose weight, right? So you're going to dedicate more time to that, or they can change subconsciously, right? So if your family dynamics change, you have a child, your parents move in with you, you get divorced, all those things can change what your priorities are. Beth, the worksheets were sent out by SCORE yesterday in email, and also at the very, very top of this, the chat box, there's a link to a Google Drive. I put all the documents in the Google Drive, so you can pull them from there, hopefully. So what we're going to do is we're going to take maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and you can just let me know in the chat box if you're done. But what you're going to do is the 8 questions that are on there, you're just going to jot down really short answers. What you're looking for is commonalities in your answers across the 8 questions about where do you spend your time, your energy, what are you really putting into things. So you want to be as specific as possible. Some things that show up often are spirituality, fitness, family, specific relationships. Let me see. And I will see if I can paste the link again. Hey, it worked. Okay, there you go. So it's whatever is most precious to you, right? No right or wrong. And I will say that sometimes the exercises evokes some strong emotions, and it could make you uncomfortable. If that's the case, feel free to set it aside until later, and then take a little exploration into why that happened. I've had a couple people cry during this, and I don't really want to make anybody cry, but it really is the difference between what I would like to be important to me and where I am actually spending my time. And I just recently did this with someone else, and the current values, if I asked them what their current values were, it was family, business, and something else after that. I forget what the third one was, but when we went through the questions, there wasn't really any time in there for family. That was more of an aspirational thing. So we'll take a couple of minutes. When you find the commonalities, they go in the bottom where it says my current highest value is. So just drop it in the chat when you're done. So Victor, you have community coming up a lot. It sounds like that is one of your highest current values. So Victor said he's retired now, so he can serve the community more now. So that's another really good example of how your values change over time, right? Your life situation changed, and it allowed you to change what's important to you. Does anybody come across anything that is one of those shoulds where it's something you're spending time on and energy on, but it's not necessarily your value? I don't know that worrying and fretting is actually a value. It may be a side effect of values, yes. Other things that you have to do, which was what we're going to come back to, the things we have to do versus the things we want to do. How are you guys doing? You're almost done? The challenge of doing this via Zoom versus being in a room with somebody is trying to figure out when they're finished and when they're not. So while you all finish up, did anybody have any surprises? Anything that either showed up on there that you didn't expect or didn't show up? Like a lot of times, like I mentioned in my example for the people that I was working with this morning, right? They thought family should be on there, and they want it to be on there, but right now it's not. They're basically, their current values came up as business, and more business. That's just where they are with things. So Victor says, I believe the values are from our mission and vision in life. Yes, they should be. Ideally, they are. But to remember back to when you weren't retired and not everything that you did was necessarily your choice, right? So a lot of people, depending where they are in their lives, they have to do things because you need money, or you've got small children, and that takes priority over a lot of the other things that you would like to be doing. So sometimes things get set aside just depending on where you are in your life. Ideally, it all comes from what we want our life to be, and that's what we're going to go to next. What is question 4? Where are you the most organized is question 4. And question 8 is the asterisk. What do you love to learn and read about most? when you download the documents, you can do it later. It'll show all the questions rather than my short version that's on the slide. So really, we're just looking for commonalities in prompting questions of how we spend our time. Okay, and if the documents didn't download, we'll try to get them out to you again afterwards. All right, so let's get moving. So anybody have anything that they want to chime in on about their current values? Anything that surprised them? Okay. All right. So the second part of this is more of an aspirational values exercise. So this is really just an opportunity to quickly reconnect with your dreams and aspirations, right? And what we're looking to do is identify any conflicts between our current values, the exercise we just did, and our aspired values. It's the things where what you must do versus what you want to do, right? We're looking for gaps between where you are now and where you want to be. And it could be gaps in skills, it could be gaps in resources like time or money. A lot of times it's time and money related. So take a minute, just think a little bit creatively about where you would like to be and dream a little bit. And I'm just going to give you like 2 minutes to do this. Just jot down some ideas. And there is no form for this one. You can just flip over your other piece of paper. Okay. So in the chat, does anybody see a gap between their current highest values and what they'd like them to be? So what shows up in this aspirational things you may not have time or money or travel. Victor says travel, learning about other cultures. RD just says yes. So a lot of times it's the things that you just don't have the time or energy for now. Anybody else have any other examples? So what we want to try to do is try to shift things, right? Identify how we can make our current time, energy, efforts more like in alignment with our aspirational values. So we're moving in that direction. So let's move on to business values. So like the Constitution or the 10 Commandments, the core values are a few key statements that answer the questions for our company, should we or shouldn't we? Usually they're discovered over time. They tend not to change for a company culture, right? That is really building the culture for the company. They tend to be different for each business. What's really cool about the core values is that it can be really good information to build into the people processes, whether you're hiring and making sure you're hiring the right people, conducting performance review evaluations, are the people showing up with your business core values at heart, giving promotions and retaining key employees. So some examples are respect for people, the customer's best interest comes first, So just imagine the power of using some of those phrases as criteria for a performance review. So in the chat, does anybody already have their business core values written out? And if so, how are you using them? And if you're all solo entrepreneurs, it's all on you anyway, so that's okay. I personally don't have mine written out because it's just me. Okay. Nope. So no examples from anybody so far. So you will get them after today. So this is an example. Two Women in a Hoe is a landscaping company, a real landscaping company. They're very clever name. So their core values are pioneers cultivating new ground, living and creating spiritual connections with the environment, enriching the gift of promise, which I actually have no idea what that means, restoring fun, passion, and enthusiasm. So in the chat, so think about you work for Two Women in a Hoe and you want to hire someone and make sure that they reflect your company's core values. What might you ask them in an interview? So one idea might be tell me how you spend your leisure time, right? Because you're looking for the outdoorsy gardener person, not the couch potato video game. How do you spend your free time, right? Another question might be, tell me about your favorite landscaping plant, right? Because you're looking for that person that's innovative and enthusiastic. If they say marigold, maybe they're not your person, right? So building your values, Victor says, how do you feel about the environment? That's another good question, right? And you're giving them open-ended questions. How do you see us taking steps to promote smaller environmental footprints from RD? That's a good question. When have you done something new that people didn't support, from Anne? So that, I think that's looking for the more creativity and aspirational information for the pioneer. Thank you, Anne. So building the values into your HR process will help make sure that your employees are aligned with the core values. So if you discuss them while you're recruiting and hiring and onboarding, you get to build these interview questions in that tend not to be skills and experience based, which is what we normally ask in interviews, to get a different aspect of how well a candidate is going to integrate and perform in your company. So just think about that as you're looking for your next employee. And as we mentioned, when your person's values are in alignment with the company's, they tend to be happier, means they're going to stay longer. So we're going to do another exercise. This document's called the Example Values List. For the people that don't have the download, you can see a couple of them, but you can come up with an idea. So as a business leader or an employee, think about your past experiences to identify the values that you use in business to make choices and decisions. What the handout has is a list of common core values found in business. And what the right column is examples of how those values might show up in decision making. So you can not read the slide, right? So if comfort was a business value, an example of how that might show up in decision making is our clients wait an average of 30 minutes to be seen. Should we make any changes to that, our processes, right? So what I want you to do is just quickly go through the list, and they are examples, so it's not all inclusive, and check off the core values that your business has now, and then go back through them quickly and use a different color or a different symbol and mark the ones that you would like your business to have in the future, our aspirational core values. Maybe you'd like your business to be more eco-conscious, right? It's thinking about where do you want to take the business. And when you're done with that, just kind of look at them and pick the top 5 or 8 that would have the biggest impact to your business or mean the most for you. And I'll give you like 2 minutes to just check those off quickly. So you might not be done yet, but were the business values, is that something that you could identify easily or not? Can you just drop yes or no into the chat? Sometimes sometimes you know them personally. So one yes, one not yet. Sometimes you know them personally, but maybe you haven't told your employees, or you're a solo entrepreneur and it really only matters that you know what they are. Sometimes we haven't given them much thought. So it could be somewhere in there, but if you think about Anne chose too many. So you think about how you can narrow it down and then pull those into any your decision making or your HR processes. It can have an impact for your business. So your next step from that would be to create value statements around those terms, right? So this generally, if you're talking about core values for your business, it's not just a word, it's some statement that reflects the concept of the word. So some examples are Virgin Airlines. Their core values are: we think customer, we lead the way, we do the right thing, we're determined to deliver. Together we make a difference. So they've taken all of those the words, and we've turned it into a phrase that they can get behind. Coca-Cola, they did theirs by using the word first and then elaborating on it. So some of theirs are leadership, the courage to shape a better future, collaboration, leveraging the collective genius, and then they have about 6 more. Making core values that are easy to understand in short phrases is the key. So it's the key for communicating it as well to your employees and being able to remember it. So to get back to our 7 actions to get alignment, step 2 is thoughtfully pursue an inspiring career path or business that's in alignment with your top 4 values that you just identified. 3 is set meaningful business goals and objectives that engage and integrate your top 4 values. And what a huge opportunity if you're able to do this. I talked to a 20-year-old earlier in 2020, and just the opportunity to have that at that age to go through and think about this as opposed to what normally happens to us. So in a perfect world, we put a lot of thought into our career path or our business so that it is in alignment with our values. In a realistic world, a lot of people take the path of least resistance, or they inherited a business or a should from their family, or their values changed over time and the business or career didn't. As an example, I left my pharmaceutical career because my values changed over time. I had a daughter, she moved way up the list, and my current career didn't really allow for it in the way that I wanted. And I'm not advocating for quitting your job. So sometimes we have a problem and our personal values don't include or align with our business or a career. So now what do we do? So there's three ways that can show up, right? So perfect world is number 1. What I have to do is in alignment with my values. You're in good shape. The second possibility is that what I have to do is not my wheelhouse. So the second option is you can accept that and look for a way around it. So you can hire and delegate somebody else to do it, or eliminate it by finding some other alternative. So some things that come up in that category: cold calling, very few people like that, doing the follow-up with clients or prospects, the bookkeeping, social media management, all those come up frequently as options of things that I know I have to do. I don't really enjoy it. There is a way around it, right? Delegate or find an alternative. The third possibility is that what I have to do is not in my wheelhouse. And you can try to learn to love it by creating a connection to your highest values. And this is called learning new associations. And what I mean by that, it's all about thinking about the need to do's differently. So you've probably heard of rewiring your brain for positivity. This is really similar. So all 3 of these steps: 4, determining how your business mission and your daily job duties benefit your top values. Number 5, writing down your daily priorities and actions to ensure that the time and energy are dedicated to them. That's making sure that they are not falling by the wayside. And what I meant is a question of what I meant by in your wheelhouse. It's I guess it's a colloquialism. It means it's if it's something's in your wheelhouse, it's something that you're good at or you enjoy doing. And I'd have to go back and find out what the origin of that is, but that's what it means. And then 6, learn to see that all events, actions throughout your business day are on the way, not in the way. And this leads us to a linking exercise. So to help reprogram your brain, you're going to create both physical and emotional links between your values and your activities. And this can help erase some of the guilt you might feel if you're spending time on something that's not one of your personal priorities, but that you need to do. An example might be traveling for business and missing your family time. So my family is my value. The need to do is traveling for business. So in the chat, does anybody have something off the top of their head that is something that they need to do, the stuff in their daily activities that's not really supported by their current values or priorities? Bookkeeping, good example. So a lot of times some of the business, running the business aspects are the things that show up in there, right? It's the stuff that we know we need to do it. We're not necessarily good at it. We may ignore it until it becomes a problem. Social media, because a lot of these things pull us in other directions. Jessica says making time for herself, right? That gets lost in the day-to-day stuff. Writing, sales could be key, right? It's how do I make that connection? So some of the ways, things that happen if your values and your priorities and what you need to do aren't in alignment, it can cause some self-sabotage. So procrastination, hesitation, vacillation, right? So you can't get started, you change your mind, you change your direction. And that's all a result of that disconnect between what you need to do and what you want to do. So the linking exercise example, and you have a blank template for this, and I think we're not going to have time to go through it, but I will explain it to you. So on the left side, you put your current values. In my example, time with family, travel, and adventure are my current values, the things that I want to be important. On down the right side, you put the things that I need to do, right? Profits for retirement, develop a strong business, generate more leads. So what we're going to do, we're going to identify some associations to link the two sides together, really. So we're looking for the longer term benefit, the bigger picture, and the potential of, well, if I do what I need to do, this is how it impacts my value. So here's some examples. So my time with family. So I went to watch my kids' soccer game, and I looked at it as an opportunity to talk to other parents about my business, right? So you're building in your networking and your business development into your family time. Traveling with your family and looking for the next retail trend while you're doing that. Making the mental connection that money saved now ensures future travel and adventure. That the security of your employees means that they're going to stay, which means you're going to have the staff that you can rely on the next time you want to take an adventure. And cold calls, more cold calls today means more money tomorrow to travel. So those are just some easy examples of how do I connect the left side with the right side. And physical links work, but so do emotional or mental links. The first two on that list are physical links, right? You're actually doing something. And then the last three are mental links. It's getting your brain reprogrammed to look for opportunities to tie your must-dos and your values together. So think about whether or not you can build or modify your business model to encompass your values. So an example is This is another coach's client who is a chiropractor. She needed to develop her business because she was just starting out and she really hated networking. One of her business values was baking, or not business values, but her priorities and values was baking. And that's really how she liked to spend her time. And what she started doing was making baked goods, putting her chiropractic logo on them, and going to the strategic partners that she needed to introduce herself. That connection allowed her to be sincere about who she was and what she valued, and make the connections that she needed to do for the business. So when you're doing the linking exercise, and they'll let you do it offline, essentially you're teaching your brain to look for the opportunities to tie your priorities and activities together. The argument is that if you do it enough on paper, it will start happening without you thinking about it, leading to that aha moment like the chiropractor has, where she tied together what she wanted to do with what she needed to do. So you want to ask yourself, how does this need to do activity benefit my values? What do I learn from it? And then vice versa. How does this value benefit my business? And what do I learn from it? This can be hard, especially if you look for the 200 that the argument is, if you can do that many of it, your brain is reprogrammed and it will start looking for them on its own, without you sitting there and physically trying to think through them. So, but it can help you find some inspiration. So lastly, we want to get alignment on our values. We want to connect them with our employees, our partners, family, customers. And studies indicate that affirming one's values can help buffer against some negative thought processes like head trash when things aren't going well. And it's got some long-term positive impacts. There's some studies that say pain tolerance and better self-control are improved if you've affirmed your values. So for your personal values, after you've identified them, which you worked on today, the affirmation can be as simple as writing about them, or talking about them with a friend or a mentor. And then the last step would really be enacting your values. So when you've contemplated your values, you now get to the point where you start to think in a difficult moment, how is this opportunity an opportunity to practice honesty, for example? Or how is this an opportunity to put my family first? For the business values, the importance of communicating them to your employees is to make sure that they're embracing them with your customers and with your coworkers, right? It's getting them all on board, integrating them into your HR processes. For smaller companies, aligning on the values can often be a discussion where you come to a group agreement on them. For larger companies, they're often handed down from the top, but you still want to build consensus around them and make sure that they're supported. So you want to work to integrate them as much as you can. So in my slide examples, Zappos actually puts it on their employee ID badge. They have all of their core values listed. Starbucks has one of theirs as an example on the back of a napkin, right? So it's getting them out there, talking about them. As a leader, really demonstrating them yourself, as making sure that people are adhering to them. An example is, I used to work for Pfizer. At one point, our core values were rolled out, and we had 8 of them. At one point, I could rattle them off. But the one that really sticks with me at this point is still respect for people. Because as a project manager, I was responsible for making sure that that value showed up in our meetings. And if it wasn't, I needed to have uncomfortable conversations with people afterwards to remind them of the core values and how that impacted the rest of the team and what we were all working on. Let's see, we have a question. Do we just list events and actions and find the links between the highest values and the needs to do? Yes, you try to do 4 on either side to make it easier, and you could make it a longer laundry list, but we can look at that a little bit more. Okay, so other than that question, before I conclude, does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks very much, Sharon. If you have a question, please type it in the chat feature, and we'll take as many as we can in the remaining couple of minutes. Maybe while we're waiting, Sharon, one for you that came up and say, online advertising includes the insidious retargeting pixel, which is the reason when we go online and look at, for example, red sneakers, that they continue to follow us around. And so how do we kind of reconcile that, the need to establish trust with our customers versus balancing the online marketing that is often so needed in today's online environment?
So I think that does go back to your core values, right? So you have to do what you have to do for the sales, but you need to be authentic about it at the same time, if that's what is important to you, right? So we all have control over our own marketing and sales, and we have the ability to say when enough is enough, right? So if it's something that we're not comfortable with, it's looking for an opportunity to find another way to do it, right? And whether that is, establishing yourself as the, more credible, more about education, right? Increasing the reliability of the company, and trying to use those tactics if you're not comfortable with the targeted marketing approach.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, difficult topic. There's one here. Are there books that we should read to learn more?
Yep, my very last slide has a couple of references on it. So
maybe we could put that up while we got a couple of minutes here.
Yeah, okay. So I just have a couple of suggested next steps, right? So think about your goals, what you would like things to be 5 years out. What do you want to get out of your business? And think about whether your values, both your business and your personal ones, are moving you in the direction that you want to go. If your values and your priorities the current ones aren't what you want it to be, remember that there is no right or wrong, and they're also not permanent, so you can change them. An example would be your spouse or your partner doesn't show up in the top 4 priorities, and maybe they should or not, or maybe not now, but that is something that you can identify and change if you want to. If your business activities don't align with your values, try the linking exercise. It does get easier. I have not made it to 200, but it gets easier as you go. And then really communicate them, right? So people are more likely to support a decision if they understand why it was made. And that works for both your employees and your family, particularly your kids. So talk about what's important to you, and that will help them help you. So moving toward alignment in your values and your daily activities is going to make your business or your job feel a little bit less like work, more enjoyable, and more like one of your hobbies. So I'll leave you a final quote by Stephen Covey. The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. And this is that resource slide. A couple of the books did quite a bit on values, business values specifically. So thank you. Anybody any other questions?
I think that's all we have time for right now. Just as a reminder to everyone, the webinar has been recorded and the materials will be available within a couple of days on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. And our next live webinar is actually this evening at 6 p.m. and it's called The Tech Workshop Your Kids Don't Want You to Attend, with Bud Freund presenting. And there's also, as I mentioned at the outset, another webinar tomorrow at noon. And the topic is Exploring Franchise Ownership with Michael Rosen. Again, if you would like to take advantage of free individual counseling, you can use the link that was shown earlier and is on the screen, or you can go to our website and click on Request a Mentor. We'd also appreciate if you could fill out your evaluations that are being sent at the end of the webinar. It greatly helps us going forward. And I would like to thank the Monroe Chamber of Commerce and the Edith Wheeler Memorial Library for their help in planning today's webinar. And on behalf of SCORE, I'd like to thank all of you for attending. And a big thank you to Sharon Lewis for presenting today. And have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.